Welcome back to Marketing for the Small Business. I'm your host, Braden Cruz. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about navigating paid media with my guest, Mary Ann at Mosaic Agency. How are you, Mary?
Great, Braden. How are you?
Pretty fantastic for a Friday morning. I've got a coffee here. I was up at like 3:30 in the morning. My newborn was not very happy for like 2 hours this morning. So
they have a tendency to do that. They'll get us. If you weren't already a morning person, having a new baby will make you that.
Oh yeah. So I've got somewhat of a habit. I mean, I've been going in and out of this for the last year or two. Where I'll, like my goal, for the longest time I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning, sharp, 4:35. It was great. I'd grab like 2 eggs. Maybe a slice of toast, hit the gym, and then hit the office. But then I've got 2 other kids. I got 2 boys, and now I got a newborn. So it's like, if they don't have school that day, well, it's kind of hard. Like maybe I have to take them to the office, so I can't drag both my boys with me and have that same routine.
And then to the office. Yeah.
So like it's like my routines kind of do this. So I'm like, okay, well, let me look at this at a bigger like time span. Be like, all right, well, am I doing okay over the last 2 years? Yeah, sure.
Well, it's hard. You have to adjust your routine with life change, right? And kids are the biggest life change, and you have to adjust around it and adjust around their schedules. I mean, it is what it is, but we all love it too, right? It's the most rewarding job there is.
Oh man. Yeah. And they're a blast. I know we're getting really off topic in the beginning with this small talk, but I heard this morning on the radio that you spend 90% of your time with your kids in the first 15 to 20 years.
Yep. That's exactly right.
And the other 10% the rest of their life. Like that's so disappointing, and like a lot of us are like so busy in that time frame, just trying to keep things going because we're also, in our early development part of life in 20s or 30s. So it's just, it's hard to harmonize that,
Well, and, with kids with that though, too, I do believe that there's a generational shift taking place where the younger generations, millennial parents right now, will spend more time with their children when they're adults. I think there's a more intentional family unit taking place with millennials as parents. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's an adjustment there too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I think some of these stats and some of these things that we do also have to do with where our habits are as a generation as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So give me a little introduction to about you, kind of how you got started, how you got to where you are now, what are some of the things you like to do, and just kind of take things from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I found my love in media at a young age. Really, I found my love in data and information. And then from there, I was already working in media, and that's where the love for the two together and how they work and how marketing and targeting your audience works. So at Mosaic, we are paid media experts that come in and help you build your strategies. How are you reaching your audience? In today's world, that's a very expertise thing to do. It's actually not as easy as it has been. I've been doing this for over 25 years now, and it was much easier 25 years ago on what to do, where to put your ad buys, where to not put your ad buys. We have so many more platforms now, as well as for the first time in American history, we have 5 generations that are working with a 6th on the way. And we have to look and see, okay, what is our audience first approach of how do we adapt our paid media to work with what the generational markets are telling us and what the generational trends are telling us. So I love to work in media and also within the generational expertise as well of what each generation is doing and how they operate.
It must be difficult for businesses to try to advertise or market when you've got nearly 6 generations that could be potential customers depending on who they are, right?
Exactly. And when I started 25 years ago, we focused on demographics, right? So we focused on 18 to 54 males, 18 to 54. That's my target audience. Okay, well, in today's world, and even 25 years ago, we weren't reaching the 18-year-old the same way we were the 54-year-old, but at the same, even more so today, where I can't look and say, okay, that 54-year-old male and that 18-year-old male consume media in the exact same way. They don't. And now we have so many different choices of media and so many different choices of outlets based off of personal interest. So I have to get to know the customer better and build what I call an audience first approach And then from there, we have to find that individual that we're targeting. Who is that persona, that individual, that behavior that we're going after?
I feel like a lot of people just overlook strategy. I'm 10 years, I'm 10 years in the industry, 8 years in business. And, I would say I lean a little bit more to the execution to get shit done, a little tactile. And, I haven't appreciated much of the strategy part, and I've always known it's important. I've kind of known about it and all that stuff too, but it really hasn't been something that's more coming closer to the forefront of my mind and before some of these actions are taken until the last 2 or 3 years. So when you talk about strategy, like, I feel like some people are just like, what? I don't need a strategy. Yeah. I don't need someone to sit down and think for me about how this is going to work. I need someone to go out and do it. Like, I don't want to pay someone to sit down and think. And so, and I don't mean to get off too much on a rant. I was working with a client that's been in business since 1966, and they're the wonderful team, great people. They deliver a great service. Otherwise they'd be out of business by now. Right. Right. I think they have like 50 employees, 30 to 50 employees. So decent sized company. Anyways, I'm going through this packet that they gave me that they hand their customers. And I'm like, and their website, we're redoing it, going through the copywriting and everything and researching competitors and figuring out, well, what are they doing and how are they doing it? How can we be different? And, what's important to the customer? Like, does the customer even care? Like, do they care that you're a so-and-so dealer? They may not even have a clue who that dealer is. They may not even care. Right. So, but they've been pushing, that dealer for the last almost 60 years or whatever. I'm like, no one cares. Nobody knows. So what's important to the customer? So I sat there and I was talking with one of my colleagues the other day, and I was like, over the last couple months, they've been paying all of us, the team, to sit here and think and put things together and figure it out, and I was like, this is a lot of work. I was like, my brain hurts after today.
Isn't that the truth? And at the end of the day, what it boils down to, so for strategy, I genuinely think that a lot of us get caught in I don't want strategy, or I don't want to do strategy, is unfortunately our industry hasn't always been great on the follow through. So we get caught in the strategy model, right? So instead, I like to look at, strategy. How do we build a roadmap to where we are going? What is the customer journey that we're headed on? Mm-hmm. What is that journey for our customer, and where are we going to reach them along the way? And then from there, all that does is drive what we're doing. But unfortunately, in the past, our industry has said, okay, here's your strategy. And then we leave it. And then we don't follow through on anything. And we don't get to the action points, where the strategy is never meant to be the action. The strategy is strictly a roadmap and a customer journey to drive us to where we're going. That's it. It's simply guiding posts. And so when we get caught in thinking of strategy as more than that, that's when it becomes difficult, because we don't actually then follow through to carry it out. How many times do you put strategies together or put things together and then nothing comes of it? And
or somebody pays for a strategy and you put it together and then you give it to them and then they don't do anything with it, right? Exactly. Or even the client pays for it and then they also pay for the execution part, and you're like, hey, the strategy is not getting done.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so we have to be very focused on actually carrying it out and looking at it as the customer journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the kind of understanding what paid media is, and kind of what's the difference between paid and organic. And that's a very basic part of that conversation.
It is. It's a very basic, but also I think so many people in the world today try to make this more difficult than it needs to be, probably for many reasons. But, paid is when you're going to actually have any dollars behind it. Now, meaning, you may be hiring somebody to post something on social media for you. That's not what I mean by dollars behind it. Paid media means that I am putting money into a platform to then get to my audience. So it's the money. Think of the money, the paid media portion of it is what's going to buy time with my audience, period. Organic is going to be when I post something that isn't boosted, isn't targeted, isn't focused on anything other than just a post. That's not an ad. that is just a post. That is just a item that's there for your customer. Now, is the organic just as important as the paid? Yes. Both of those play a role in reaching our customers. So we have to have the organic part of it be very strong, making sure that we have it. My concentration in my job is focused on the paid. So how do I take organic and amplify it? That's what paid is about. Paid is about taking, okay, you're doing all this great content. It's blog posts, it's videos, it's things like that, that you don't have any dollars behind. But then the paid will just exasperate that and accelerate your actions and accelerate your response from your customer. So you need to have both plans and both outlines of how you're reaching your audience in organic and in paid.
That's an excellent description. You put that together pretty well. Yeah. So one of the conversations I'll have too is like how SEO and SEO work, organic content, some on-page and off-page stuff.
Yes.
One of the things that can help complement that and help drive more organic traffic without paid is by doing some paid media. By running some traffic to the website via Google ads or social ads or whatever, driving traffic to the website, getting people to view it and interact with it, right? That can also help out some of the analytics, some of the SEO on the organic side.
So you're looking at a full funnel approach here, where at the top of the funnel, it's that brand recognition, where you want people to get to know you. You want to get, so that's where that's where a lot of different tactics of ads you're going to use for that to get to the bottom funnel where you're looking at the PPC. Now I'm going to hit on SEO for a second, because so many brands will be like, yeah, do you do SEO? We do paid SEO. So it's, paid search. There's a big difference, and people get caught into, and they lump it all into one thing where, do you do SEO? Okay, great. We do paid search. Is that what you're asking? Because I think that's actually in the paid and the organic space. That's the number one confusion of items that we see. The next is probably social. It's easy for people to grasp, oh, that's a TV ad, that's a video ad, like that's easier for them to grasp. But digital is something that's a little harder for them to grasp as paid versus.
Well, again, you may go back to that conversation of where you had the generation gaps in that, right? So like, and also TV, radio, those have been around for a long time, much longer than social media. But social media, let's say roughly 10 years old, right? And that's pretty much one generation that has had a pretty good experience with it. And everyone before that is kind of like not really used to it at all. So the way that they interact and engage with it is much different.
Well, and you have to look at, okay, so the pandemic changed our consumption habits as well. So when we look overall, and this is why programmatic targeting and digital targeting comes into place as well, because across the board, and I'll get into all the different stats and different things, because we had such a huge shift of consumption of media during the pandemic. The difference is that when 9/11 happened, we had a very specific shift in media habits for morning news. Morning television and morning news went through the roof. Why? Because Americans wanted to know that the world that they went to bed to is the world that they're waking up to. So that was 9/11. That changed it. That actually hung out for a little bit and for a while. However, with the pandemic, what happened is we thought it was going to be a 2-week thing. And two and a half years later, we were still in it. We were still focused on it. Things have happened and changed. We as humans overconsume information when we're in a survival mode. So what happened was we went from overconsumption of media already to an accelerated overconsumption of media overnight. And we stayed there for 2 years. So our habits of media changed and shifted quite drastically. So we had
reiterate that one more time. Are you talking about all the way back from 9/11 or are you talking about from
No, I'm talking about in the pandemic. During the pandemic.
During the COVID pandemic. Okay, yeah. Which is so true because everyone was stuck at home, right?
Yes, exactly. And we naturally overconsume information out of survival. We naturally go to do as much as we possibly can. So we were already high as society when it came to consuming media. We already consumed a lot. However, COVID hit, then we were over an accelerated amount of consuming media. And it was out of survival. It was out of entertainment. It was out of boredom. It was out of so many different things, except for we stayed here because we consumed that media for such a long period of time at those levels that we've never come back down. So we now have a society that is over consuming media more than it's ever done before.
That's why people will spend hours and hours on TikTok.
Yes. Exactly.
Or YouTube
we
Shorts.
We didn't have that.
Because,
yes, like,
and it's more consumption on volume than it is on quality. Like people are watching less
100%.
TV shows and more shorts, like more 3-minute videos or 10-minute videos. And you know what? That's almost concerning too. Like I've had a conversation with my wife about our boys, about how like some of their attention spans, and I'm like, the video games that are styled and played today that are kind of, I feel like a lot more. I don't know. There's a lot more little things that are going on. Like if you, for the guys who remember like Halo, right? Like there's just players. Yeah. Well, nowadays there's video games like Warzone to where there's like things in the air and the bush is moving and then there's distance here and there's like so many things and your brain is sitting here firing, like trying to pay attention to it all. And you're constantly overstimulated. This is fascinating. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So our brains are at an overstimulation on the regular. And so what happens is, well, as marketers, we have to take advantage of it, frankly. And there's no short amount of attention that we can grasp for our customers. Our customers are everywhere right now. Now, by generation and by individuals, they're in different spots. And that's what we have to do to outline that. Mm-hmm. But we did see during the pandemic, we saw an older generation that overnight went onto social media. And why? Because they wanted to stay connected to family. They wanted to stay connected. Individuals in their 70s, in their 80s, their 60s, overnight, social media became their thing.
My grandma's 83 and she's on Facebook all the time. She'll post GIFs and everything. It's great.
Exactly.
She does it to stay connected because she's got like 7 kids and she's a great grandma. So like there's a big family.
Think about during the pandemic, who did they tell us right out of the gate was the highest risk? It was our older generations.
And our older
generations and newborns, right? And they were more isolated. Our older generations became isolated overnight, and for them, they needed a social outlet. So social media became their social outlet, and Facebook, for the most part, was that, and that became their social outlet. And we probably, it was a 10-year evolution that happened overnight. That maybe even in their lifetime we wouldn't have seen, but it happened quickly. And then you see even in the younger generations where they started to consume local media as if it was a new format or a new thing. They may be consuming it for today, but you saw local numbers start to increase in a younger generation because contests, all of a sudden that was new. They were also looking for I can find information about my county, about my town, about where I am. And so they started to consume that local media. They may consume it on an app, they may consume it online, but they were consuming it as a local platform, radio, television, things like that. So we have to adjust our media to today because our consumer and our audience and our customers went from, we're here at a media consumption to we're here at a media consumption. And so now it's easier to buy the impressions. It's easier to get there. You mentioned that, 20, 25 years ago, when I started in this, it was easy. I called a rep. Excuse me. I would call a rep and I'd say, hey, I need a rate card for adults 18 to 25, or 18 to 35. That's usually how it would go, right? It'd be a larger demographic. And you'd get a rate card. You'd put the spots together. You'd be on TV, radio, print, or outdoor. And that's what you did. Now, there's so many different ways for us to reach our audiences, hence why we need the customer journey and the roadmaps.
So where's the value and the benefit of paid media to
the value and the benefit?
Like it's what, just outreach alone, just trying to get more eyeballs or what?
Well, it actually depends on what the goals are. Because if your goals are actually to increase sales, that's one approach. If your goal is brand recognition, that's another approach. So you have to look and see, okay, if I'm wanting to increase sales, I may be looking at a brand awareness plus some bottom funnel, PPC, paid search, things like that as well. So I may be looking at some streaming audio, streaming television, OTT, connected TV, some display ads, native advertising. But the one key thing here is we've got to get away from thinking about just calling the local television station, just calling the local radio station. Love those guys. That was a good chunk of my career. But now we're in the place of finding partners, You have to find a partner that knows how to target your audience. Now we got to get away from the 18 to 54 mindset and go, you know what? I'm going to reach a woman that's between the age of 30 to 35. She loves to garden. These are her habits and her behaviors. She's an outdoors person. She's this, she's that. And I go after that. I go after the impression in which she is. When I put my audience first, it's much easier to find the value in the paid media.
And a lot of people are familiar with the term demographic, but a lot of people haven't heard persona, which is a little bit more specific. I feel like the general understanding for demographic is age, interest, geolocation, and gender. Like primarily those four, like for the most part. Persona is like, well, what are their daily habits?
What are their behaviors?
Routines? Who do they hang out with? Why do they do that? Who are their favorite sports teams, if that's applicable? Like, you go deeper into it and you kind of actually build out these profiles, and you could have, I mean, it's ideally to start out with at least 2 or 3, but you can build out to, I would probably say no more than 5 or 6. Yeah. You know, because like once you start having 10 or 12 personas, it's like, okay, hold on. You can't have a dozen people that are your ideal customers.
You definitely need to rank them, unless you are willing to spend so many millions of dollars to do it.
But even then,
at that, you start to dilute it. Yeah. You don't want to get too far in it.
Yeah. Well, like I heard, have you heard of Taco Bell's new brand guidelines and ideal target audience profile that came out? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. Yeah. I haven't read into it, but I have heard about it.
So briefly, it's your 18 to 26-year-old male that is a stoner, loves to smoke weed, lives at his parents' house or in a college dorm, and wants to go get Taco Bell at midnight.
Okay.
Got the munchies. That is and drives like an old beat up Honda Civic. When I heard this, I was like, are you serious? And so I went and looked a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay. All right. So I bookmarked that to dive into it later. So if you guys haven't heard of that, go do some research. And if you guys find some more information, like, send that over to me. My email's in the show notes. I'd love to see more of it. But I just think I just thought that's so interesting. Like, they got so specific on it, and I was like, oh, wow.
But that's building that persona, because why do they get that specific is because in programmatic digital targeting and in precise target, I like to call it precise targeting. Programmatic is the tool in which you're using, and we can, so to define programmatic, like I said, you would call a radio station, you'd call a website, you'd get a rate card, and you place. Programmatic is the automated bidding process of that. Find a partner that's on a direct demand side platform that has a direct seat. That's how you want it. You don't want a diluted DSP or a diluted CPM or a diluted impression with it. But why did Taco Bell build that? Is because in today's world, we can target that. We can target that very specifically. We could target those college campuses, but not just that. I could target their behaviors. I could target what they're doing. And then if I start with that audience first approach and I look at it and go, okay, this is my persona, this is the individual I'm going after, I can target that. And then now I'm going to look and say, okay, where are the impressions for that individual? Where are those? And now I'm going to work back my plan of saying, okay, it's on streaming audio. I've got a little connected TV in there. I've got a lot of display. I've got short videos. I've got pre-roll. This is where I need to be. And that's then where I build the content and then put the paid plan into action. But in order in today's world, for media to be best and you're paid to work best, is to know your audience to that level. I actually love that example because you've got to know it. If you know them to that level, then you know where to go find them.
Everyone's heard the saying, at least if you're in business, you waste half of the marketing dollars and advertising dollars, but you don't know which half, right? So imagine if you actually spent a little bit of time in the strategy realm ahead of time, right? And you equivalated the half of that you would have wasted, say half of 10 grand and it's 5K. Now, great. You're going to go spend 5K on strategy and do that once or twice a year. I'd probably say, quarterly would be ideally, every 90 days would be ideal to assess marketing performance, discuss that with your C-level execs or co-owners and things like that or whatever. and then make any adjustments to the persona if it needs to, right? And make those modifications going forward. But yeah,
you're spot on. Yeah, because we all have heard that. And I remember back in the day when I was first in media, people would, they would ask the question, well, how do I know it's working? And I had a sales person that was, that worked close to me, and he goes, well, the cash register is ringing. That's how you know it's working.
Oh, and I still get those answers today. How do you know? So I ask my customers, how do you know what we're doing is going to work? Right? Because they ask me the same question. And sometimes immediately I'll ask them the same thing back. Yes. And I ask them because I'm like, I want to make sure that what I'm doing is working. And the only way to know that is if you have a way to report it internally and come back and tell me. Because otherwise, they're going to be like, well, I haven't seen a difference in this and that, or whatever.
You have to have measures, right? It has to be measurable.
We have a client. Almost everybody goes off hearsay. And I like telling this one story of where I was I was at one of clients a couple years ago. This customer of theirs was like, oh, I found them on their website. And I'm like, I know they don't have a website because I work with them. If they did, I would have made it. We would have done it. So, and I was like, what? I was like, they don't have a website. She's like, yeah, their Facebook page. I was like, come on. I was like, and I tell that story over and over because, like I said, majority of people just don't understand. The ignorance is fine. It is the way that it is. I'm not talking, down on those people who don't know the difference. They don't, maybe they don't need to know the difference. And I don't care if they do or don't. But the issue is then that comes back on me, because if I do any sort of advertising and the client is like, well, we haven't seen an increase from your results, but have you seen an increase in sales? Okay. Are you tracking on where they come from? They're like, no, I've heard people say they come from Google. I'm like, okay. You know why they come from Google is because I'm doing a lot of brand awareness on Facebook and Instagram or whatever. And they're constantly top of mind. So when they're ready to go shopping at your location, guess where they go? They go to Google Maps to try to get directions. And if you look over your Google Maps report over the last 6 months, you'll see where there's a steady increase, or on some of the months where we've done some cool products or promotions or campaigns, you'll see where there's a spike back in March. That's working. It's just not direct from the platform. And so sometimes these different platforms will complement each other,
100%. And not sometimes. It is, if we're using them to their strengths, they each have their strength, and we're going to get the strength out of them, and they're going to complement each other. Yeah. And if we sit back and if we don't have any measurable actions to take care of, so that one thing, really why do I like digital targeting and programmatic is because I can actually track that conversion. I can track it to the website. I love putting tags on the ads. We do that all the time. Our team will put the tags back there and then help place it. And I can tell you not only where did they go, but why did they go there? Did they fill out a form? Did they not? Where was their action from there?
What pages did they look at? What keywords did they research? How long were they on this? And I love being able to provide that kind of data. But sometimes clients don't have time to sit there and look through that. So again, that's why I feel like it's important that you pay somebody to do that. Typically, that would be a brand manager or a strategist to do that every 90 days, to go back through the data and look and see what people are looking at. How long are those calls lasting? What's the performance of the search rankings on this, or conversion rates on the forms? That's another thing to dive into. Conversion rate, CRO, conversion rate optimization. Absolutely. That's a whole nother job description, that everyone looks over, and I'm like, you don't realize that if you change some elements on this form and you take some copy off the website and you make it a little simpler here, conversions.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah. And, a lot of times that's why it's so important finding a good partner. I tell businesses all the time, so we work with the smallest of the small to the biggest of the big. And same here. Really, truly, it doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are. You need to be taking certain steps to reach that audience. And when you look at these conversions and you look at everything along, it's telling you a story. It's telling you something. And that's data and information. When you work with the right partner and you work with the right groups and that come in and say, okay, monthly, quarterly, these are insights that we're seeing. That's valuable to you. that is not something. I think a lot of time brands can be so worried about partnering with somebody, finding a marketing partner, finding a media partner, I'll do it myself. I'll do the Google ads myself. I'll do this. I'll do this. You as the owner, you as the small business executive, you as the large business executive don't have the time to do it. You have a value on who you are and your time. So it actually doesn't cost you that much more for you to have the free space to go run the company and think creatively about the company, when someone is looking at the optimizations, looking at the insights, looking at something for you to not have to do it, and will then synopsis this for you, right? So that you're not reading 14 pages every month. It's a matter of, okay,
or 64. I've got one for a client that is 64 pages. It's like SEO and keywords and competitors and social and like paid media and different platforms. And like, it's a lot, but being able to decipher that.
Yes. And it becomes very overwhelming for the business owner, for the business executive, because it's a lot on their plate. But when you're working with somebody like you, they're going to provide insights. They're going to provide, when you find people like us that come together that help you and are along the journey with you, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. What does this journey even mean? Where should we adjust? Where should we go?
I think it's hard to find good people, good agencies, good partners, et cetera. And I feel like a lot of clients out there have had bad relationships. They've had bad boyfriends or girlfriends. And actually that's exactly how I like to equate it. Just because you had one bad dating experience doesn't mean that you're not going to go on a date again. Yeah. And that's exactly right. Because there are many bad, there are many good. And so you have to find that fit for you, because unfortunately, our industry has not been the best in that. I'll bring up, this is a quick story time. So there's a retail based client that's has one shop here, actually across the street from our office. And they spend 6 figures on marketing and advertising. They've recently hired us to help them out with their social media and paid social. They have another company that does their SEO and paid SEM. They spent $10,000 in May. They said that they presumed that they brought in only a profit of like $3,000 out of like $200,000 in sales, out of like hard costs, labor, like the whole month or whatever it was. So I didn't dive in too much into that conversation, but I brought up how like when whoever they hired to do their Google ads, they gave them 3 variations of a headline and 3 variations of a description of what some of the ads that they wanted to run. Okay. And so, which is what was requested of them by whoever was creating their ads. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a great direction, but I wonder if they were running smart campaigns and charging you 30% of that 10K, pocketing $3,000, setting up smart campaigns in 30 minutes, throwing that stuff together. And what triggered the idea with the smart campaigns was because they said that when they saw some of their ads, that they were they were kind of jumbled to where when you read them, they didn't really read right. And so the offer or whatever it was like, what? And so, and they were like, how come this wasn't disclaimed to me? And I'm like, I do not know. It could just be because one, what you were willing to pay for someone to put in the work. Right. Because if you do a smart campaign, you could DIY that yourself. I told them, I was like, you do not need me for that. If you want to pay me for an hour to show you, I was like, I'll show you how to DIY that. Now, if you really want to do things correctly and you do have a budget of $10,000 and it's not $100, right? So I'm like, you don't want to do this for $100. But if you have a $10,000 budget, pay somebody to spend 5 or 6 hours to do it right the first time, build out the campaign, 2 or 3 ad sets, half a dozen ads for each one, check them on a weekly basis for 30 days or once or twice a week, and remove negative, add negative keywords and figure out which ads are performing the best, and then have that kind of perfected over a month period. And then you're going to see a big difference in that. Now, one's going to be a little bit more costly on the labor because it does take a dozen hours, probably over a month, to kind of manage that. And of course, whoever's doing whoever's actually doing the paid media will probably tell me that, well, that's not correct. That'll vary. It'll probably change based on whatever service you're providing, whatever their budget is, right?
Right. Exactly.
But anyways, like, so I try to explain to them, I'm like, just because you're doing Google ads, like, or just because you're doing whatever it is,
we're not
like,
all created equal.
Well, and there's some levels to it as well. So like, if your budget's also going to be dependent on that.
Yeah. And they're not the same. So your budget's going to be dependent on it, but how one person might do it is totally different than how another might do. And that's where it goes back to the trust factor, right? And as an industry, I feel like it's my job to make sure that we go above and beyond, go the extra mile, to make sure that you understand what you're doing and understand where your money is being spent. That's your money. We spend your money like it's our money, meaning that we don't like a wasted dollar. We don't like a wasted dollar at all.
If I wasted dollars, that's my job.
Exactly. And
like, do you guys not understand that? Like, if I waste your money advertising and marketing and it doesn't work, exactly. I'm losing my job with you. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
And I can only do that so many times before my reputation's ruined.
Yeah, but Braden, how many people waste dollars for our customers all the time?
Oh man.
And that's where I think at the end of the day, it's a trust factor, because you have to, I wholeheartedly agree that we can't waste a dollar. And we approach it in that manner of not wasting any dollars, doing what's best for you, doing what's best for the brand, doing what's best for your customers, and not phoning it in, not half doing it. I think that's the key piece. Is it when you're in a partnership and when you're doing things together. I'm going to tell the story of my husband and my kid, it has to do with marriage, but I also equate it back to business. My son was probably about 10. Now he's 16. But I overheard them in the kitchen and they're doing the dishes. And my son asks my husband something about, so you do the dishes and mom likes to cook. So she usually cooks. And he goes, and that's because marriage is 50-50. And my husband looked at him and said, no, marriage is 100-100.
Thank you.
Yes. Each person puts in 100. And the same thing is with business. If I'm a good partner, I'm putting in 100. You're putting in 100. We're both putting in 100. And that's the difference. And that's where we have to look at it and equate it. And if we're not, and your partner's not putting in 100, it's okay to find a new partner. I can't tell you how many times.
Or a new client.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on.
I've had to fire some clients too, because you know that like they're not putting in the same effort that you are. And you know that.
Exactly.
If you
you're going to be blamed for the lack of success.
Yeah, yep.
And that's not fair.
Like they didn't work.
Yep. Yeah. Where in reality, you didn't do your end of the deal. This didn't happen, and it's likewise on the other side.
So we're supposed to, as a part of all of our social packages, we do a thing called content visits where we actually come out, capture the content, bring it back and use that for social content. And also if we're managing website and other elements too, we can use that content for whatever need be. Anyways, so there's been, there's some clients to where we're supposed to do it monthly or quarterly.
Okay.
They will just skip it entirely. And I'm like, I know you are so busy. You can't return anybody's phone calls here. Like you have something going on that I can make look interesting.
Right. I promise.
And so I'm reusing this. We're reusing the same stuff over and over and over again. Oh my God. Okay. I can't tell you this. How many times it's happened too. This happened once. I got dropped $10,000 on us in cash by a cannabis business to get started on marketing. Disappeared off the face of the planet for 3 months. There's a dozen of us on my team that have tried outreach, calls, text, emails, 2 or 3 different people on their side, nothing. And then they were like, oh, we're so sorry, blah, blah, blah. Let's pick back up. So I was like, okay, well, you guys told me that you guys had an event in 30 days and you needed all this stuff done. So, we were trying to do our due diligence and really work with you guys and blah, blah, blah. And so 2 months later, after that, they wound up saying that like how we weren't a good fit and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, you guys will not communicate. This is also a common thing too. Cause like we're experiencing now. We brought on 2 new clients in the last 6 months in particular, and how the communication is almost bar none. Yeah. And I'm like, you do understand that if you hire somebody and you put them in a desk at your office and you never talk to them and you never let them talk to you, or you only do it once a month, if that. We haven't talked to them once a month. And it's like, listen, I need some direction. I need some help. Like I'm new to you guys. And even if I did, like, we've got experience in both of their industries, but still there's a lot to understand in how their business is unique, how their process is different, what kind of, you may offer the same services, but there may be something unique to a few of those services that nobody else does. Or for example, let's say you do plumbing. That doesn't mean everyone does septic tanks.
Yeah, you're spot on.
I'm like, I don't know that, but did you know that's on your website right now? Oh God, we need to take that off. Well, good thing I asked.
Exactly. So if you as a brand do not think of your partner as part of your team, it doesn't go as well. When you think of them as part of your team, when you work with them as part of your team, when they work with you as if they are part of your team, that's where it goes well. And so I don't understand this side of and actually during times of recession, during times of downturn, this is when people are the most nervous they'll disappear, and then 3 months later they come back. Where in reality, hey, a simple response of we're just not ready, or a simple response of we want to move forward, but this, and this is happening. It's okay. We're all partners trying to help you with it. Are there things that we can do to help? I almost guarantee you, if you're struggling with a business decision right now or a business frustration, and that's the focus, I almost guarantee that if you have the right partner, they're going to be able to help you with it. And that's that key piece is how do we stop thinking of, if you think of your partner as a vendor, then they're not really a partner. They've made you feel that way for a reason.
Oh my God. That's, that's so common though, too. Cause I don't know if you feel this way, but there's been plenty of times to where people want to hire us, write the checks and never talk. And I have clients that we've been working with since I got started.
Yep.
We don't talk. They don't care to talk. Right. They just write the check and the things get done and they just say, okay, and even though that you try to, put in some additional effort, they're just not a big deal to them. It's not a priority. And so it's like, I guess that's fine in one hand, it's not really the ideal because I really enjoy the communication and the partnership with our clients and stuff. And I know my team does too, but it's the other hand, it's like, all right, cool. Well, I'll check off the boxes and just accept your check, like whatever, but I can't really use you as my portfolio and be like, wow, look, blah, blah, blah.
Well, when you're a good partner, you want that communication because of the fact that you take pride in your work. You want to make sure that you're providing everything you possibly can for your customers. And so for us, we want that communication. We have, we work with agencies and we work direct to brand all the time. So with agencies where, an agency will be our client and we handle the media for their clients, or direct to brand, we handle the media direct to brand. And a lot of times what will happen is not so much for us, but we've had these journeys where you get into it and they don't think of you as part of the team. And it's like, we can do so much more if you do think of us as part of the team. We can provide so much more value to you and your team if you just let us in and let us be part of that. And, same thing for you, Braden. It's the let us be a part of the team. Let us, if you want to just write checks, great. But at the end of the day, most likely you do actually want more of the relationship than that. So what can you as the brand do, or what can you as the agency do to enable and to establish that relationship and to nurture that relationship?
Yeah, it probably comes down to more of the nurturing and the relationship from either side, and probably more and probably more on the agency side, since it's more like a parent-child relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and you want to have that nurturing for sure.
So yeah, we have a few more topics let's see if we can try to cover in the next 15-ish minutes. Choosing the right paid media platform, budgets, and any success stories.
Yeah. So choosing the right media platform, I'm going to just beat a dead horse here and say, go audience first. And when we look and approach audience first, then we know where our audience is. And I'm going to go back to the Taco Bell example. It's perfect. It's exactly, exactly where they are. You know exactly what they're doing. You know exactly the habits now. We can't go the demographic path. We are going the persona individual path. So when you think of your audience first, then that's where you're going to be able to build out that plan by where they are. So each tactic and each platform and each channel have its strengths. Television is live events, sports, news. That's where its strength is. If you're going to look at broadcast television, prime time is no longer a thing. You can stream it. You can watch it anywhere else. And frankly, now I can stream live sports. I stream live sports more than I do anything, but it may be through a local network. It may be
cable
through,
anymore.
Yes. Well, and
especially in my generation and below, below mine, like, and I don't know about yours, but like I'm 30, so I think I'm in the millennial generation at 90.
You're a millennial. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm a first year millennial. So, when you're born in 1981 is the first year of millennials. Okay. And it goes until, so you're millennial. Okay. And when you get into the millennial phase, I actually will go as far to say now, millennials are two different generations, where Gen Zs are actually more like 3 to 4 generations within a generation. We're getting outside of the millennials. It's a little controversial. Some people don't like it when I say this, but we're getting outside now of putting generations in an 18 to 20 year gap of a lump sum group of people that's 20 years of ages.
Yeah, 90s and early 2000s, right? Just the whole, and it's like, no, they're kind of separate.
No, they're totally different. Yeah. And so you have to think of it. I was at an event and I was overhearing a conversation next to me, and it was a family and they were talking, and it was an uncle and an aunt and their sibling, and this uncle, aunt, and then the niece and the nephew. And they're talking, and the niece and the nephew are talking about their older cousin. And they're like, he's a millennial. And that's exactly how they said it. We're Gen Z. We think differently. And and this aunt and this uncle were trying to understand, what do you mean you think differently? You're only 5 years apart. And they're like, no. And then they got into this young lady, she goes, younger Gen Zs, they think differently than I do. Like younger, she starts talking about the video games that she would play as a Gen Z versus today's Gen Z and what they're playing. And so we've got to think about the audience approach and the audience habits that we are trying to reach. And when we put the audience first, that's when our paid media plans start to fall into play.
It's genius. So what about, okay, before we switch on to the next topic, the different platforms of paid media. What are the different platforms that I can advertise on, or that you prefer, or kind of take that with a grain of salt?
So I like to lump some of them into categories because of the fact that there's so many. So you've got your traditional media platforms, which is TV, radio, print, outdoor. That's traditional. Then you have your social, your Facebook, your Instagrams, your LinkedIn. That's its own. Then you have your Google. Google is its own platform when it comes to PPC, SEM, what you're doing in that space. And you can throw Amazon in there.
Does YouTube go into the Google category, or is that social?
Yes. So I look at Google as, YouTube going into it's technical, right? But it goes into that. However, then I'm going to go into programmatic. Then you've got your programmatic bidding. Google oftentimes falls into that. So that's why I like to put SEO, SEM, PPC, and Google in its own little category. Because then when it comes to display, when it comes to video, when it comes to things like that, that's when you're looking at it more of a programmatically bidding. So Google is one data set when it comes to programmatic, and there are thousands of data sets. And that's why it's so important in today's world to find a good partner. And when I say a good partner, I don't mean a TV rep that's selling you programmatic media. If you are doing social, if you are doing PPC, you need to be looking at adding on programmatic to what you are doing, because you can throw in, and if you're doing anything in Google at all, you can throw in the display, you can throw in the pre-roll, you can throw in any video, all the above there, native advertising, everything that goes with that, for probably within the same budget or just a little slight increase. But if you're looking at social, if you're already on social, if you're already doing PPC and search, you need to be looking at adding in programmatic.
What about budgets? How do I figure out paid advertising budget, not marketing and advertising as a whole? So just
yes. So just look at your paid media and put it in its own category. That's so important. I can't tell you how many people are like, well, my marketing budget is this. Okay. Well, how much is that of a salary of an individual that's going to go sell? How much, how do we break that down? So your paid media budget is totally different than all of those categories put together. So when you're looking at either a percentage of sales, if you're a brick and mortar, you're selling, if you're selling a good in an item, you're looking most likely at a percentage of sales, depending on I would say a lot of people go on the gross sales side of it, but look at this is what I always say with budgets. Look at where you are currently, analyze it, see, okay, am I getting out of it what I want? Most likely, if you're not getting out of it what you want, you need to increase it or adjust it and where you are. Most people are already spending some money, but this is where we go back to strategy. They're spending money and they're shooting it from the hip. They had a local TV rep come in, they bought that. They had a magazine rep come in, they bought that. There's no rhyme or reason. They just know they need to do something. And again, that's when it comes back to having a partner. But you're looking at that percentage of sales. If you are e-commerce, you have got to be in the Google and you've got to be in the programmatic space. The Google and the programmatic space is where you need to be. And looking at and social. So let me hit on social for a second though, too. Social is no longer the targeting tool it used to be. And now social is more brand recognition than it was before. So that's where if you're in social, that's why you need to be looking at some complementary Google or programmatic to go with it, because your social ads are great, but they're primarily a geo target and maybe by gender. But your programmatic is going to be able to come in and actually target those same people and will exasperate your budget being spent on social.
For those who may not know, what's programmatic?
So programmatic is the automated bidding of ads. So again, remember when we went and I was talking at the beginning of I would go to a rep, I'd get a rate card, I'd place the ad. That was on a website, that was on print, that was TV, that was outdoor. Now I go and I bid on the impression of the individual that I'm trying to reach. And that is what programmatic is. And it is very specialized. You want to find a partner in it. You want to find, but most likely, and you want to find this, the question to ask is, are you a direct seat on a demand side platform? That's the question to ask, because you don't want it to be diluted. You don't want it to be multiple layers between you and the actual trading desk of getting those ads out there. So programmatic it's a lot of times people can equate and wrap their brains around it. Okay, it's like Google Display. That's a form of programmatic. I'm bidding on it. But now programmatic is so much more than just Google by itself. Google is a data set for sure, but there's more than just Google.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have, are there any recent 2023 success or horror stories?
Success or horror stories?
We're like, oh my God, this client crashed and burned, or we crashed and burned, or, oh my God, we did a great job and this was crazy. I got to tell you about this.
Some of the things, so actually it's a 2022 story, but I love, it's the thinking outside of the box and it's thinking to use data for today. So we worked with a group that actually needed to target, this is when the Super Bowl was in LA, and we had to target certain Bengals fans to get to certain areas and to work with them to make some certain purchasing abilities and certain purchasing decisions while they were in Los Angeles. And
like
one of the
in
things,
the area of town, you had to try to influence where they were around town.
There were certain brands wanted to make sure that they were seen to be able to be purchased by them for various things. So one of the things that I loved was in programmatic and in digital, when you're doing programmatic correctly, you're thinking on this type of a level where you're going, okay, what do I need to do? Where can I go with this? And what we did was we said, okay, do we have the data sets to just target Bengals fans? Do we have that? And you know what? We did. And so we were able to then say that again.
Were you lucky to have that?
So no, I mean, actually in programmatic, well, again, this is why you have a partner and not just a vendor that's doing it, because you can go in and you can think outside of the box of what data sets do we have available to us? And then how can we target that? And that's really what we went after. We went after going, okay, what data sets do we have available to us to make this happen? Mm-hmm. And we were able to specifically target them as a fan base to be able to say, okay, when they hit this area, if they're a Bengals fan, we're going to serve these ads to them. And that's that level of thinking when you're using programmatic and when you're using true targeting tools in that manner, that you're able to do it. What I will say is what I'm seeing and crashing and burning in 2023 are brands holding off to spend money because they're scared of the recession.
Which has been happening for the last 4
thing.
years.
It has been. It has been. And
but it hasn't been this whole 1929 crash. Like, it hasn't been this moment that everyone is waiting to wake up one day and see things on fire. And it's like,
right.
It's starting to wonder if that moment is going to happen or not. Because I don't think that it is. I think that some of the stuff is happening behind the scenes.
It's a gradual trend.
And it's yeah.
It's a gradual trend. I mean, we see everything from government entities to brick and mortars to e-commerce. Just, you know what? We're just going to hold on budget, or we're just going to minimally do what we need to do. And I always have said during a recession time is the time to play leapfrog. This is the time because your competitors doing the same exact thing you are. So you know what?
It's also hard for businesses to do that because a lot of them are terrible financial managers.
For sure.
Like
they're not managing the cash flow.
They go, oh my God, look at the profits we made in Q1. Q2, it's like, made some more profits. Q3, it's like whatever. And then next year, it's like recession's here or whatever. Like, now I don't have the money because you've been buying Lamborghinis and Porsches and stuff, or, and the business owner's been living on a different lifestyle than maybe the business could afford or whatever. And now the business, can't afford to try to get ahead of competitors because the way that the ownership or management is running or managing the business. Yeah. So, and that's a whole
where if you were to take that money, instead of taking it and buying that Lamborghini, instead of taking it and doing various things and actually putting it into ad spend or putting it into targeting of your audience,
right?
Guess what? You'll have more profit for that Lamborghini down the road. So those are the things right now. The number one crash and burn that I'm seeing in 2023 are brands going, you know what? I'll just wait. I don't know.
But it's also an election year, so that's another reason why they'll wait.
Oh gosh, yeah. And 2024 is going to be an interesting cycle to say the least, and that adjusts everybody in their mindset as well.
Whoever gets into office is going to bring new jobs, just like everyone does.
It's going to be.
And it's like you didn't bring in new jobs. You got rid of one industry. You hurt one by making connections with another, and I don't know.
Exactly. It's all an ebb and flow, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
We go up, we go down, we go back up.
Exactly.
Well, it's been exciting to have this conversation with you. I've learned a few things.
Good.
Programmatic.
Well,
I know what programmatic is. I mean, I haven't done it myself. I'm sure advertising manager does. It's not something I manage or commonly quote unquote sell individually or anything like that. But that's a good reminder and a good way to explain on personas and demographics and starting with the audience first and, all that stuff too, they're great reminders, and that's the idea that we want to try to express to everyone who's listening. If you're running a business, like you got to start with your audience first, who are you trying to target? Like quit hitting that blue boost button on Facebook and targeting everyone, and then being like, Facebook doesn't work. And then also like communicate with, if you have a partner or if you have an employee, have some communications, consistent communications, and have some level of accountability. Write down some sales goals. Keep track of where your customers are coming from. If you don't know how to do that, there's a plethora, including Mary and I both have methods of being able to help you figure that out. That's step one.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. And don't be scared to reach out to a partner. It's okay. Don't be scared to have the initial conversation.
It's not based on price either. Got to trust them.
Exactly. That's 100% it. That's 100% it.
I'm not a used car salesman. I make that joke.
I know but unfortunately, in all the years that I spent in media, marketing's gotten that reputation because of the fact that at times it can feel like that.
Yeah. And being called a marketing consultant when you're really a sales rep.
Yes, exactly. It drives you crazy, right? Yeah. It drives you crazy.
I'm like, there's the value of consulting. Just
right down the toilet. Yep, that's exactly right. So,
any other final thoughts, concerns, comments, haikus?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that not to beat a dead horse on this, but don't be scared to reach out to partners and actually find that right partner for you. For brands, don't be scared to niche down in an audience and actually target an audience as opposed to going so broad and shotgun and brand approach. So there's a lot of fear that holds us back as business owners, and we just have to remove that veil.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today
Yeah.
and talking about the whole navigating paid media routes and budgets and all that kind of stuff. So if anybody's got questions about this stuff and they want to reach out and email you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, for sure. So you can reach me on my website. It'll go directly to my email at mosaic.agency/contact. Anybody who's heard me on the podcast, I always offer a first initial meeting for free, no charge, for us to analyze what you're doing in the paid space.
Which is totally valuable. It's like getting a free opinion. And you spend a little bit of time analyzing that stuff. I know you do.
Yes, quite a bit.
Yeah, looking at if
but
we
love to help brands. We love to help brands of all size, small and the largest of large, to be able to figure out and reach the audience the way they need to.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. Well, if you guys have any other comments, questions, ideas for next recording topics, things like that. So reach out to me, write a comments in YouTube if you're listening on Spotify or Spreaker or whatever platform you're listening on or watching on. If you've got something to you're like, oh, well, we want to know about this, or we want to hear from so-and-so, whatever kind of feedback you guys got, go ahead and leave those in the comments and I'll schedule those for an upcoming episode. So Mary, thank you again so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Brandon, for having me on.
So we'll see you next time. Thank you, guys.